Hey everybody, welcome back to my garden. So today I'm going to be doing a little bit of an experiment. I'm going to try to dig up and move this big mature dwarf lilac. You can see it's a good, at least 8 foot tall, and it's a very well established mature one. Unfortunately, it's in a really bad position. It's right in front of this weeping crabapple, which means that you can't see the trunk of the crabapple at all, and it's right in front of the flower bed, so it's just kind of dominating the space, so it needs to come out. So my options are I either try to dig it up and move it and transplant it, or I just kind of chop it off, dig up the stump, and just trash the whole thing. I obviously don't really want to do that because it's a big, beautiful plant. So today I'm gonna try to save it. Now, I have no idea if I can even get this thing out of the ground, if it'll survive. I will give it kind of the best shot at life, but unfortunately, because it's a lilac, I also can't prune it this time of year. Because I would be cutting off all of the flowers. And I guess I could try to sacrifice next year's blooms, in order to give it a better chance of survival. But in all honesty, I don't know that it will help all that much. And so I'm going to try to dig it up without pruning it too much. Sorry, you can probably hear Archie the intern running around, shaking his collar over there. But anyway, I am going to try to dig this guy out. And so let's see if I can get it out of the ground. Okay, so as you can see, I was actually able to get it out of the ground, and it only took me about 10 minutes. I was expecting it to take 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, but this nice, dark, rich, loose soil was super easy to dig, and I was able to get it out super easily. So you can see there's not much of a root system, maybe the equivalent of kind of like a 10-gallon if I was buying it in a nursery can, and this tree is obviously way bigger than what would come in a 10-gallon nursery container. So I don't know that this tree is gonna make it, or bush I should say, it's not really a tree. But instead of just dumping it in the trash, I decided to kind of give it my best shot. Although I will admit, I didn't necessarily think this all the way through, because now I have it out of the ground in the lawn on this large, very heavy shrub, and I don't have a place to go with it yet. I haven't figured out where in the garden I'm gonna plant it. So my plan is to kind of heel it in. So I will cover the roots, make sure they are kept moist, and then just kind of lean it up in a corner for a day or two until I figure out exactly where I want to go with it. And like I said, this is definitely an experiment. I would not recommend doing this with a plant that you really care about. I don't know that this guy is going to make it. It's a big, beautiful lilac though, so I really hope it does. But this is like a really big risk. I mean, I just essentially chopped off all the plant's roots. So fingers crossed it makes it. You can see that the bed behind me though looks totally different. Getting this guy out of here has completely opened it up. You can see the trunk of my crabapple now, a whole bunch of suckers that need pulled off, this giant heirloom rose that has kind of these purpley colored flowers. I don't know if you can see it in the camera, and there's not really any that are really in their prime right now. But this guy is huge and definitely needs some work to kind of bring it back to life. But I think that now that this giant lilac is out of there, this bed can really take on a new life of its own. But like I said, I don't know exactly where I'm gonna put this, so I am going to go heel this in, so cover the roots with soil, or just really anything to keep them moist. And then I will pick this video back up in a couple of days once I figure out where this is gonna go in the garden. Okay, so it is clearly a new day, but I finally decided where I'm going to plant the lilac. And it is going to go right here in this corner, which is actually just a few feet down from where I pulled it out of the ground. But in this spot, it will be allowed to kind of own this whole space. And so I think this will be a much better place long-term, as opposed to the first place where it originally was. And you can see that there's this little chunk of grass that goes back to the fence. Long-term goal is to kind of cut this piece of grass off and just extend the flower bed. I think it looks a little awkward to have the flower bed just going back to the fence, or the grass going back to the fence, and then the flower bed's just ending on either side. Like I said, that's a little bit more of a long-term goal though, because that is going to require me to move lawn sprinklers and stuff like that. And to give you an idea of where this is in the garden, it is just probably about 10 feet towards the house from where I dug it out, right next to the crabapple tree. And then to my right is the corner of the house. And so what I did with the lilac overnight is I just kind of put it in a shady area, and then I kept the roots moist today. Luckily, today was a pretty overcast day, so I don't think the plant will be too stressed. I am still not totally convinced that I'll be able to get it to survive, but if it does survive, I think this will be a really good place for it. You can see there's some other perennials in here that will need to be taken out and moved. Namely, this grass is going to have to come out in order to have room for the lilac. And then there's also a peony down to my left, it's hidden by all of these big plants with the white flower. This is actually called policeman's helmet, which is a very noxious weed here in Washington state. You are not allowed to sell the seeds or sell the plant. And it's not so much of a problem here in the eastern part of the state, but it is just completely decimating forests in the western part of the state, and it is very, very invasive. So all of that, unfortunately, will need to get yanked. It is a beautiful flower, but it's not something that I want to promote, and it's not something that I want to run the risk of taking over the garden. But anyway, I am going to get started planting, and then I will come back and show you what it looks like when I'm all done. Okay, so as you can see, I got the thing planted, and in all honesty, planting this guy was a lot more work than I thought I was signing myself up for. For whatever reason, this area of the garden is much harder to dig than any other place that I found. It's full of like rocks and it's just really heavy soil right here. So I got quite the workout getting a hole dug for this guy. But now that it's in the ground, as I think it looks like it's been here forever, and I'm super happy with it. You can see that I had to remove some of the grass, and so all I did is just use my shovel to kind of reshape the bed a little bit. And then when I was planting it, I mixed in probably 3 or 4 cups of this Espoma Biotone starter fertilizer. This will just make sure that the plant has everything it needs to form new roots and get itself established. So from this point out, I think the biggest risk to this shrub is it falling over. It is really, really top heavy, and there's not a huge root system on it, as you saw. So I will probably come back in with a couple of stakes to kind of tie it up so that we don't lose it in a big storm, especially since we're kind of going into fall. But other than that, I'm just going to keep it moist for the next week or so. And I think that this plant, I'm fingers crossed that it survives. Like I said, I don't know if it will, but I really think it will now that I've gotten it into the ground. I think it's in a good spot, and I think I got a decent amount of roots on it. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe down below so that you can see if this lilac survives, and the way that the rest of this bed comes together. But again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.